What is going on, New York Giant fans? Welcome back to another Big Blue in the Bronx YouTube channel video. We're trying to get more video content out to you guys and still doing the live streams as well. But make sure you hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops through, drops. Appreciate you coming back. Share this out. Do all the good stuff. We're trying to climb a steep hill. That is the goal of 2,000 by the end of the year. Again, it's a steep hill. And we're going to try to keep carving out content for you guys along the way with our busy schedules. But again, it's up to us to really put forth the effort. With that being said, I got another New York Giants video for you guys today. And we're going to talk about Brian Daboll. Now, I know the video says 3 ways Brian Daboll could keep his job as the New York Giants head coach. And people will be like, you know, at least coming into watching the video, oh, he thinks Brian Daboll's going to get fired. Oh, he doesn't want Brian Daboll here. Here is my instant thoughts on this whole situation known as the 2023 New York Giants season. And I'll get into some of the other stuff later. So, I think that Brian Daboll should stay as the coach. I personally think the Giants are losing on purpose. Have I ever seen that before? Not really. In terms of being a Giants fan, now, if you look at some of these other teams across the league over the years, they've done that. But I just feel like in a lot of different ways, the New York Giants are trying to lose. And if their effort is trying to win, it's definitely not good enough. But nonetheless, you know, I want the Giants to lose down the stretch. I don't think winning any of these games is really going to mean anything. You have a lot of players coming off the books next year. You need draft picks. They should have traded some guys at the deadline. We'll get into that in future videos. But the Giants are most likely going in for another reconstruction, starting with the quarterback, and they'll go, you know, in different avenues with different guys. But here's the thing. We can all look to the future. We can say, you know, Davis is going to be here, Shane's going to be here, blah, blah, blah. I'm not a guy like Rafa Vaccagliano that's going to say the Giants shouldn't take a quarterback or this, that, and the other thing. And then there was also that other report that, you know, Brian Daboll and Joe Shane, their seats are hot. I don't believe that at all. Now, I am not going to sit here and say that their jobs are 100% safe. We have 7 games to go. We have 8 weeks to play, but 7 games to go because we also have the bye week. That's after the Patriot game. You need, first of all, let's start with this. The Giants have been playing awful almost the entire season. And let's see. We had the game against the Cowboys, game against the Raiders. That is 2 straight blowouts. 2 straight blowouts. And you have Tommy DeVito as the quarterback. Now, in retrospect, Matt Barkley is the better QB, and Tyrod Taylor will actually come back down the line. But if you think, and this is just saying this as a fan, someone who's being objective, if you think that losing 30-6 every game is going to net you another year of a job, I would tend to disagree with you most of the time. And there's ways you could flip it and say Davis is going to get fired or Davis is not going to get fired. So let's go into the ways that Brian Daboll could keep his job. And that's kind of what I just said. Play competitive. You got to be competitive in a lot of different games. Now, against the Eagles, both times you're probably going to get your shit rocked. Let's be honest, right? The Rams game, it could go either way in terms of being competitive, non-competitive, you know, getting your shit rocked. The Saints game, you could argue that's also one as well because most likely they will be fighting for the division at that point. Now, obviously those guys, they're tough opponents, much better in their respective positions than the New York Giants are. And at that point, we will have Tyrod Taylor back, which will probably net the Giants' offense 14 to 16 points a game. Now, back to reality in these next few weeks. We have the Commanders. We have the Patriots. And we have the Green Bay Packers on primetime. What I will say about that is this. I know personally as a fan, yes, I want the Giants to lose. But I want them to look competitive. I want them to look competitive because you shouldn't be losing 30-6 to the Packers team. Jordan Love has had his fair share of struggles this year under pressure. Mac Jones is not a good quarterback. He's been benched like 3-4 times already. The Commanders, I mean, they've had some really good offensive performances, but it's been Jekyll and Hyde with Sam Howell. And we're going to link this into the next one, but overall, you should not be playing uncompetitively against sorry-ass teams. And I will tell you this, Giant fans know it, Patriot fans know it, that Pats-Giants game is going to be one of the worst offensive games. One of the worst offensive games. Might end in a tie because both offenses are putrid. They scored 6 against the Colts, and the Giants scored 17 against the Cowboys, but a lot of that was garbage time. So let's put that out there. Now, one thing I'm going to add on, we're going to go into number 2, which is control the locker room. There's 2 sides of the coin here. Number 1 side of the coin is the players that will not be here next year. We've already seen a guy in Xavier McKinney open his mouth multiple times, even before the Giants started playing worse than they already did to begin the season. We saw Xavier McKinney open his mouth after the game against the Dolphins, basically saying, yeah, we're not going to blame the defense. That's not the right thing to do. Paraphrasing, of course. And I wasn't happy with that. Like, nobody was saying at that point in time the defense is the number 1 main issue of the team. It was the offense. It continues to be offense. Week in, week out. And then he also opened his mouth again when he was talking about the leaders not being heard. So whether that's a contract dispute, whether that's something with the coaching, or whether it's McKinney just being tired of losing, I don't know what that situation is. I don't think he's going to be a Giant next year. I'm going to be completely transparent with you guys. I don't think he's going to be a Giant next year. They're still waiting on Javarius Owens, I guess, to when, they activate him. Dane Belton and Jason Pinnock. They might draft a safety again. They want us to re-sign Bobby McCain too. But you have to control the locker room in like 2 separate ways. And also get into the other thing in just a second. But you can't let stupid mistakes happen. And it's not really like stupid mistakes because this team has been filled with stupid mistakes all year in every single game we've seen, even in the games they've won. But for instance, celebrating an interception down 35, Cooper Rush throws an interception, Darnay Holmes, him, Xavier McKinney, Dane Belton, and Bobby McCain went to the far side of the field to celebrate that. I mean, I know the defense has been playing really, really, really hard. But what are you celebrating down how many points? And it's not like they had some flawless performance either. Yeah, there were injuries on that side of the football. But, I mean, they gave up 7 touchdowns. They gave up 7 touchdowns. It's not like, oh my God, it was the turnovers, this, any other thing. Obviously, the offense played like shit. But I literally have the tweet here from the Giant Insider podcast. The Cowboys offense had drives of 96, 95, 86, 87, and 75 yards. And you're to tell me, oh yeah, the offense was the cause of that. No, it wasn't. It really wasn't. So that's what I got to say about that. Those stupid mistakes. And, you got to control the locker room that way. Now, the other side is you have to control the frustration. You have to control the frustration with a lot of these guys. And it's going to come down to guys that are not going to be here next year and are going to be here next year. We saw Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton get into it on the sideline. Don't know what that was about. Apparently Slayton got into it with Mike Rowe. Frustrations are going to mount over the next few friggin' weeks. This is not going to be an easy path for us Giants fans to watch. As for the guys on the sideline playing and constantly losing. But what I will say is Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard, I would not count on them to return next year. So that's essentially where you don't have to worry about controlling all of the locker room because those guys are not going to be here next year. That's what you know. But also, you don't want to let that blow over in a domino effect to other players who are going to be, quote-unquote, a part of the future. Saquon Barkley. We know the Giants didn't trade him at the trade deadline. In that respect, Saquon also, by the way, got into a little bit of a disagreement with Brian Daboll on the sideline. Looks like, as of right now, they intend to sign him to another contract because of the player he is. And whether you agree or disagree with that, Saquon is a voice in that locker room. Saquon is a voice. You don't want to piss him off to where, everybody starts backing Saquon versus the coaches, and then you have a whole fucking revolution. This is not, uh, the American Revolution in the 1700s. You don't want to make it into that. And I know I just went off with an expression there, but the point is, you don't want guys that are going to be here next year and potentially the future to build up anger towards the coaching staff. You want it to be frustration one game and that's it, and you just realize you got to keep moving on and that there's next season. And I know it's hard as a player to contain your frustrations and be like, dude, what the hell are we doing here? The offense isn't scoring points. But again, that's another way that's another way he can keep his job, or at least could keep his job. And I think he will keep his job, but he has to control the locker room. Because if they explode and everybody's just, Landon Collins, Eli Appling each other, Daboll's going to be on the hot seat. And again, I don't want to say it because I don't want to go through this freaking process again. Number 3, and I have an honorable mention too. Number 3 is manage injuries well. That's something the New York Giants have not been able to do this season. Daniel Jones with a neck injury. Andrew Thomas with the hamstring injury. Whether you want to talk about the Saquon Barkley injury. Some of these other injuries. Maybe you could consider Darren Waller too. The Giants have not managed injuries well. And it's going to be very, very prudent that the Giants manage the injuries that come in their way really, really well. And with that, it's really circled in on the players that are going to be here next year. I don't want to speak anything into existence. But before I speak anything into existence, let's go back to the last game. Andrew Thomas. Someone falls on his knee. He's hurt. Gets carted to the locker room, comes back in and plays. In that moment, in my personal view, now I get it, some people will disagree with me, and there's always the coach perspective, and you're not the coach, you're not the GM, whatever. I would not have brung him back into that game because the Giants were down at that point. Andrew Thomas is signed in long-term. He is definitely a part of the future. He plays really well. And I know Giant fans, that one consolation you'll have over the next few games is to evaluate certain players. Andrew Thomas, is he still, the top-tier tackle we know? All these different things. But you don't want him to have a knee injury, an ACL or an Achilles or something like that to where it keeps him out some of next year. You don't want that to happen. You don't. So maybe you cushion the injury a little bit and say, hey, listen, Andrew, and I'm not saying bench him the entire season. Saying, look, for the rest of the game, for extra rest, we're going to keep you out. And then so on and so forth. And you do that with guys like Saquon. I think Saquon should be getting less reps, personally. I know we got less reps last game than forsake against the Jets. And, the Raiders, which is a good thing, and he was still kind of nursing that injury. And guys like Dexter Lawrence, guys like Kayvon Thibodeau, they're going to be here next year, a part of the future that the Giants are building. Those guys need to have their injuries managed well, or else the Giants are not going to have anything to look forward to next year other than the QB, because, hey, these guys that the Giants played in meaningless games with very bad injuries, they are going to be out for a portion of time. I have an honorable mention. Now, the thing with this is there's sometimes in the NFL and across multiple sports leagues that this happens, that sometimes you wait till a little bit after the season and then the coach is fired. I believe that's what happened with Joe Judge. He was not fired on Black Monday. He was not. They waited a little bit. They said, okay, Joe, we can't do this anymore. You're gone. Sayonara. Do whatever you got to do. This honorable mention could be taken care of after the season. And my, oh my, this is a very important one. You need to make some coaching changes. Absolutely. We all know the big news, right? Ken Dorsey, he just got fired as the OC of the Bills. Do the Giants contemplate bringing him in and say, okay, Mike, you're gone? That's what the Cubs did with Craig Counsell. Craig Counsell was available. They fired David Ross, and now he's their manager. Is that something that the Giants, especially Brian Daboll, is willing to do? Remember, Ken Dorsey was Brian Daboll's first option as OC. And not to mention, anything Kafka did is thrown out the window, in a sense. Because if you're getting a rookie quarterback in here, it's not going to matter whether Kafka or Dorsey's the OC because you're starting with a new system, or it's just continuity for the other guys. Better yet, that you have Kafka fired going into the rookie quarterback's first year before he's even drafted, rather than the second year, oh, he's got to learn a new offense again. So that's potential. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. But also as well, there's two main coaches I'm throwing out the window right now. Thomas McGahee. I know special teams hasn't been all that horrible the last few games, but the excuses he makes, the way his special teams unit plays on most of a weekly basis, and again, they haven't been bad the last few weeks because the offense has been covering up that, little section because they're so putrid. But the blocked punts, how many times did Jamie Gillen almost have a blocked punt against Dallas? How many times? We're waiting for it to happen. We are literally waiting for it to happen. The other guy I'm talking about is Bobby Johnson. If you can't fire your friends, you shouldn't hire your friends. Personal and business are two different entities in a world like a football team or a podcasting platform. Anywhere. Personal and business are two different things. And if you can't separate the two, you can't put yourself in a position to even just go out and regulate different things. So if Brian Daboll can't get rid of Bobby Johnson, I get it. The talent has been in and out. The injuries have been in and out. But there is literally no improvement in some of the guys we're seeing. And there is better options out on the market. Personally, me. I've been shouting from the literal fucking rooftops since 2022 about Mike Munchak. And he's looking to get back into coaching again. This guy's a Hall of Fame offensive lineman, was a great offensive line coach with the Steelers. So there's that. And then special teams, you do what you got to do. Maybe you hire Chase Blackburn. He was a special teams coach for the longest with the Panthers. Now he's no longer there, at least to my knowledge. But still, you factor that stuff in and you say, listen, for the best of the business, we got to go and part ways with each other. You got to make coaching staff changes. I don't care if the Giants, end the year, like 5-12 or 4-13 or 7 and whatever. You have to make changes going into year 3. If you know that your job is safe, put a little extra security under it. Value every position. Look at the tape. Evaluate and say, look, okay, this coach is not getting the job done and the talent is there. He's got to go. So for me, it's special teams and also the offensive line. But that's going to do it here. That's 3 ways Brian Daboll could keep his job as the New York Giants head coach. Hope you liked it. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the good stuff. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops here. Drops more Giants content coming through. We're also going to do some baseball offseason stuff. Appreciate you guys. See you next time.